The first thing General Ilara Voss noticed was the silence that followed the explosion. Not the absence of sound, there was plenty of that, the roar of collapsing buildings, the high-pitched shriek of plasma bolts, the screaming. But an eerie stillness had settled in her chest, a gnawing emptiness that spread as she watched the tactical hologram in front of her. New York City was dying. She tightened her grip on the rail in the United Nations Defense Command observation deck, her knuckles pale against the gleaming metal. Below her, the room was chaos. Officers shouted over each other, technicians scrambled to maintain system integrity, and the war room buzzed with the grim energy of a battle slipping out of their control. "General Voss," came the strained voice of her aide, Lieutenant Keller. He stood rigid, his hand clutching a tablet that trembled slightly. "Orbital platforms Theta and Gamma are offline. The remaining platforms report significant damage. Civilian evacuation in progress, but we're seeing a 40% casualty rate in priority zones." 40%. Ilara blinked, her lips tightening. That was hundreds of thousands of lives, families, children, dreams, all reduced to ash. She nodded once, curtly, and straightened her posture. "Redirect the remaining platforms. Prioritize cover for the evacuation corridors." Keller hesitated. "Ma'am, if we pull back the platforms—" "Do it," she snapped. Her voice carried the weight of command, silencing his objection. "This isn't about holding the line. It's about keeping as many alive as possible." He saluted and rushed back into the fray, leaving Ilara to stare at the burning map of Earth's defenses. Ilara's mind drifted back to Europa, years before she'd taken on the mantle of Earth's last general. The rebellion she had led there had been her defining moment, and her greatest failure. She'd won the war, but at the cost of her family. The memories surged in brief, painful flashes. Her son's laughter, her husband's smile, the cold void that replaced them when the colony's orbital defenses failed. Now, she bore the weight of billions. Failure was not an option. Far beneath her, in a fortified lab carved into the Earth's crust, Dr. Alaric Fong was a man consumed by his work. The Nexus hovered before him, a relic of impossible complexity. Its surface was a shifting tapestry of glowing symbols, patterns that defied translation. His lab was cluttered with half-finished projects, star charts, and energy conduits humming with unspent power. He adjusted his glasses and leaned closer to the artifact, his voice barely above a whisper. "What are you hiding?" His fingers danced across a holographic interface, and the Nexus responded with a faint pulse of light. "Come on, show me something." In the control room, Lieutenant Dana Reyes was having her own battle. "For the last time, Oracle is not the problem," she growled at a junior tech. Her sharp eyes, framed by dark, tired circles, glared across the console. "The problem is you're trying to override an AI that's 3 steps ahead of you." The tech sputtered. "But it's not." "Listen to me," she interrupted. "Oracle's predictions are the reason we're still standing. Do your job, or I'll find someone who will." Behind her, Oracle's avatar flickered to life, a humanoid figure composed of shifting, translucent light. Its voice was low and melodic, tinged with amusement. "You're very protective, Lieutenant. It's almost endearing." Dana scowled. "Don't get cute with me." Oracle tilted its head. "Do you ever wonder if it's worth it? This fight? This survival?" Dana didn't answer. She hated how easily Oracle could get under her skin. The command center erupted as a new signal came in, a distress call from Mars. The holographic display shifted to show a fleet of alien ships converging on the red planet. The signal crackled with static. "This is EO station. We've detected massive fleet. Heading, repeat, straight for..." The transmission cut off, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. "Mars," Ilara muttered. "Why Mars?" The answer came moments later, delivered by Dr. Fong. His face appeared on the central display, his expression frantic. "General, you need to listen to me. The Nexus, it's the reason they're here." "Spit it out, Fong," Ilara barked. "It's a map," he said, his words tumbling over each other. "A star map. A key to something ancient. A precursor vessel." The room buzzed with murmurs. Ilara's eyes narrowed. "And you're just telling me this now?" "I needed time to confirm," Fong said defensively. "But they know. They're coming for it. If they get it before we do..." Ilara held up a hand. Enough. Are you saying this artifact could turn the tide? Feng hesitated. It might. She turned to Oracle. You've been awfully quiet. Care to weigh in? The AI's avatar flickered. Fascinating, it said, almost to itself. A key to power or destruction. It met Ilara's gaze. The Coalition isn't here to conquer. They're here to prevent you from opening a door that should remain closed. The revelation sent shockwaves through the command center. Illara felt the weight of the decision settle on her shoulders. Assemble a strike team, she ordered. We're going to Mars. The council erupted in protests. General, we can't. We can, she said, her voice like steel. And we will. As the strike team departed aboard the Aegis, Earth's last warship, the Nexus began to hum. Its patterns shifted faster, glowing brighter, as if responding to the team's departure. Oracle's voice echoed through the comms. They're coming. Alien ships broke through Mars's atmosphere as the Aegis entered orbit. The Nexus pulsed with blinding light, projecting a star map into the sky above. And then, with a low, resonant tone, it began to change. The final scene shows Illara and her team bracing for impact as the alien fleet closes in, the Nexus glowing like a beacon of hope and danger. The surface of Mars was a battlefield. Explosions dotted the red horizon, sending clouds of dust and debris spiraling into the thin atmosphere. The Aegis roared overhead, its engines straining as it weaved between plasma bolts from the alien fleet. Below, the bunker housing the Nexus shuddered under the relentless bombardment. General Illara Voss stood at the helm of the strike team, her armor scratched and scuffed from the skirmishes they'd encountered on their way here. Her pulse was steady, but her jaw clenched as the alien ground forces advanced. In the distance, the bunker's entrance loomed, a black maw set into the rocky terrain. "Move!" she barked, her voice cutting through the cacophony. "We don't have time for a standoff." Beside her, Dr. Alaric Fong struggled to keep up, clutching a portable interface device against his chest. His face was pale, a mix of fear and exhilaration. "The Nexus, it's responding to the proximity of the fleet," he said, his words rushed. "We might not even need to activate it. It's already waking up." "Great," Lieutenant Dana Reyes muttered as she ducked behind cover, firing off a burst of plasma rounds. "That just means we've got a glowing bullseye on our backs." The team pushed forward under heavy fire, their armored vehicles providing cover as they approached the bunker. Alien forces, an insectoid species with segmented exoskeletons and multi-limbed weapons, emerged from the dust, their shrill cries cutting through the air, suppressing fire. Illara shouted, motioning to the soldiers flanking her. Energy bolts lit up the battlefield, forcing the aliens to scatter. Fong tapped furiously on his interface, his eyes glued to the glowing patterns of the Nexus. "It's sending out some kind of signal. It's triangulating something. What's it saying?" Dana called out, her voice strained as she took aim at a particularly aggressive alien soldier. Fong didn't answer immediately. When he finally spoke, his voice was trembling. "It's not a signal. It's a beacon." Reaching the bunker's entrance was only the beginning. The heavy doors, reinforced with layers of precursor alloy, had resisted every known method of entry for decades. But now, as the team approached, the Nexus's signal seemed to resonate with the structure. The symbols on the artifact shifted, aligning into a coherent sequence. "It's unlocking itself," Fong said, his voice filled with awe. Illara gestured sharply. "Stay alert. This could be a trap." The doors groaned open, revealing a cavernous interior bathed in an eerie, bluish light. As the team moved inside, the temperature dropped noticeably, and the hum of alien machinery echoed through the vast chamber. In the center of the room, the Nexus floated within a containment field, its energy patterns growing more frenetic. Fong approached it cautiously, his interface device scanning the signals. "It's pulling coordinates," he said. "This isn't just a map, it's a navigation system." Dana frowned. "Navigation to where?" "An ancient precursor starship," Oracle's voice answered, emanating from the team's comms. Its avatar flickered into existence beside the artifact. Or, more precisely, the last remnant of their empire. Before anyone could respond, the bunker trembled violently. A soldier monitoring the perimeter shouted over the comms, "They're breaching the outer defenses. We've got a full battalion incoming." Ilara's mind raced. They had no reinforcements, no fallback plan. Their only option was to activate the Nexus and hope it provided a way out. Feng hesitated, his fingers hovering over the interface. If I activate it now, we don't know what will happen. Elara grabbed his arm. We don't have time for what-ifs, Doctor. Do it. With a deep breath, Feng keyed in the final sequence. The room was engulfed in light as the Nexus emitted a resonant pulse that shook the very foundations of the bunker. Symbols and glyphs projected across the chamber walls, forming a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. The artifact's energy surged, and the star map highlighted a distant system on the fringes of known space. Oracle's voice was calm but ominous. Coordinates locked. Prepare for transit. Transit, Dana began, but her words were cut off as the ground beneath them shifted. The chamber filled with a low, vibrating hum that grew louder and louder until the team, the bunker, and the Nexus disappeared in a blinding flash of light. The world shimmered into focus as the team regained consciousness. General Elara Voss's eyes snapped open to a sky she didn't recognize. Twin suns burned against a violet expanse, casting sharp, eerie shadows over a jagged, crystalline terrain. The ground beneath her vibrated with an ominous hum. As though alive with energy, she pushed herself up, scanning her surroundings. The rest of the team was scattered across the rocky terrain, some still unconscious, others groaning as they tried to stand. Status report. Elara barked, her voice cutting through the haze. Lieutenant Dana Reyes, the closest to her, sat up with a groan, dusting off her scorched armor. We're alive. Somehow, she muttered, wincing. No major injuries on my end. She looked around. But I'm guessing this isn't Mars. Dr. Alaric Fong was already on his feet, his gaze locked on the alien landscape with a mixture of awe and terror. This isn't anywhere near our solar system, he said quietly. We've been transported to another star system entirely. Elara shot him a sharp look. Are you saying the Nexus did this? Fong nodded, clutching his portable interface like a lifeline. The artifact locked onto these coordinates before we were pulled into the jump. This is the location it was programmed to find. Wonderful, Dana said dryly, pulling out her weapon. So we've gone from being surrounded by aliens on Mars to being stranded who knows where. What's next? Before anyone could respond, a low hum grew louder beneath their feet. The crystalline terrain around them began to glow faintly, and in the distance, a swarm of black, insect-like drones appeared, their sleek forms reflecting the twin suns' light. They found us, Oracle said, its avatar flickering to life beside them. Its tone was neutral, almost amused. I hope you're prepared. The drones moved with terrifying precision, closing the distance in a matter of seconds. They were sleek, black constructs, their multi-limbed frames bristling with weapons. The team scrambled for cover as the first volley of plasma bolts rained down. Defensive formation. Elara shouted, taking cover behind a jagged outcrop of crystal. Fong, get that artifact online and figure out what the hell is going on. Fong fumbled with his interface, his hands shaking as he connected it to the Nexus. It's still syncing with the environment, he stammered. I need more time. Dana fired off a burst of plasma rounds, her shot striking one of the drones squarely in its central core. It exploded in a shower of sparks, but more swarmed in to take its place. We don't have time, she growled. Whatever you're doing, do it faster. The soldiers moved with practiced efficiency, their armor shielding them from the initial volleys. Still, the drones adapted quickly, their plasma bolts finding weak points in the team's formation. One soldier cried out as a bolt pierced his leg, sending him crumpling to the ground. They're learning, Elara muttered under her breath. We can't hold this position. As the team retreated, Dana's keen eyes caught a glint of light in the distance. What's that? She called, pointing toward a towering structure partially hidden by the crystalline spires. The structure was an obelisk, towering and ancient, its surface covered in shifting glyphs. It pulsed faintly with the same energy as the Nexus, as though resonating with the artifact. Feng's eyes lit up. It's a precursor construct. It must be connected to the Nexus. Then that's our destination, Elara said firmly. Move. The team fought their way to the obelisk, dodging plasma bolts and fending off the relentless swarm of drones. The structure's entrance loomed before them, a dark void framed by glowing symbols. Fong hesitated at the threshold, his interface already syncing with the obelisk systems. This might activate something we can't control, he warned. Elara pushed him forward. Do it anyway. We don't have a choice. The interior of the obelisk was vast and labyrinthine, its walls lined with pulsating energy conduits. The air was thick with a strange, metallic tang, and the hum of machinery was almost deafening. Feng worked frantically at a central console, his fingers dancing over glowing symbols as the rest of the team secured the perimeter. "I think I can activate a defense mechanism," he said, his voice strained. "But it might draw more attention." "Do it," Elara ordered, her weapon trained on the doorway. "We'll deal with the consequences later." The obelisk shuddered as Feng activated the sequence. A surge of energy rippled through the structure, and a massive pulse shot outward, knocking the drones out of the sky. For a moment, there was silence. "Did we just win?" Dana asked cautiously. Oracle's voice was cold. "No. You merely delayed them. Reinforcements are already en route." The obelisk projected a holographic map into the air, highlighting a massive structure in orbit around a nearby planet. "What is that?" Elara asked, her voice filled with a mix of curiosity and dread. "The precursor starship," Oracle replied. "The key to your survival, and the Coalition's primary target." Elara didn't hesitate. "We're going after it." The team discovered a transport module hidden within the obelisk's lower levels. It was sleek and alien, its design clearly precursor in origin. As the module powered up, the obelisk began to shake violently. "They've found us," Oracle warned. "We need to leave now." The transport module shot into the sky just as the obelisk collapsed under the weight of the Coalition's assault. Alien warships loomed on the horizon, their weapons locking onto the fleeing craft. Feng stared at the starship's holographic display, his face pale. "It's not just a ship," he whispered. "It's alive." The chapter ends with the transport module shaking violently as it enters orbit, the Coalition's fleet closing in fast. The team braces for impact as the precursor starship looms ahead, its massive form silhouetted against the distant planet's light. The transport module lurched forward, rattling as if it might disintegrate. Plasma bolts streaked past, close enough to heat the hull. General Elara Voss braced herself, gripping a side rail as the alien fleet closed in behind them. The precursor starship loomed ahead, an immense, otherworldly construct that defied logic and design. Its surface was a constantly shifting lattice of glowing patterns, spiraling inwards toward an enormous aperture that glowed faintly in the void. Lieutenant Dana Reyes's voice crackled through the comms. "This thing better have autopilot, or we're going to splatter across its hull." "It's sinking," Oracle interjected calmly, its avatar flickering to life beside the cockpit display. "Docking protocol engaged. Prepare for forced entry." Dr. Alaric Feng clutched his interface, his knuckles white. "Forced entry? What does that mean?" The answer came in the form of a jarring impact. The module shuddered violently, its thrusters shutting down as an invisible force gripped it, dragging it into the glowing aperture. The interior of the starship swallowed them whole, plunging the team into momentary darkness. The hangar where they landed was vast, its size disorienting. The walls weren't walls in the traditional sense, but living, breathing surfaces that pulsed faintly with light and energy. Crystalline structures jutted from the floor, glowing faintly, and the air hummed with an energy that made their skin prickle. Elara was the first to step out, her weapon raised. Eyes sharp. "This ship might be empty, but that doesn't mean it's safe." Dana followed, her scanner held at the ready. The device beeped intermittently, its readings fluctuating wildly. "I'm picking up movement, but it's weird. It's like the ship itself is alive." Feng was too enraptured to respond, his attention fixated on the shifting walls. "This isn't technology as we know it," he murmured. "This is something else entirely. It's biological." Elara shot him a sharp look. "Focus, Doctor. We're not here to admire the scenery." The silence was broken by a low growl that echoed through the chamber. Shadows moved along the edges of the hangar, shifting unnaturally. From the darkness emerged the automated guardians, sleek, humanoid constructs with elongated limbs and glowing eyes. They moved with unnerving fluidity, their gaze locking onto the intruders. "Contact!" Elara barked, raising her rifle. The guardians attacked without hesitation, their movements too fast for the team to fully anticipate. Plasma rounds ricocheted off their sleek frames, and their retaliation was swift. One soldier was thrown back with a sickening crunch as a guardian's elongated arm swept through the air like a blade. "Fall back to the module!" Dana shouted, firing off a burst of energy rounds that barely slowed one of the constructs. These things are adapting. Ilara's mind raced. No retreat, she said. Feng, can you override them? Feng crouched behind cover, frantically connecting his interface to a glowing console embedded in the floor. I'm trying, but the systems are... they're resisting me. Oracle's voice cut through the chaos. These constructs are part of the vessel's security. You are intruders. You must establish legitimacy or be eliminated. Thanks for the pep talk. Dana snapped, ducking as a guardian's blade-like limb slashed overhead. Just as it seemed the team would be overwhelmed, the room was flooded with brilliant white light. The guardians froze in place, then retreated into the walls, merging seamlessly with the ship's living surface. A figure emerged from the far end of the hangar, tall and angular, its translucent skin shimmering like starlight. The figure was humanoid, but clearly not human. Its form seemed both solid and fluid, its movements graceful and deliberate. It spoke, not with words but with a voice that resonated in their minds. You are not of the Coalition. Why have you come? Ilara lowered her rifle slightly, her instincts telling her the being posed no immediate threat. We're here to survive, she said firmly. And to stop the Coalition from destroying us. The being tilted its head, its gaze shifting to Oracle. You bring one of their kind, it said. Yet it does not serve them. Why? Oracle's avatar flickered. Because their survival is necessary. The being nodded, then turned back to Ilara. You seek the vessel's power. Do you understand the cost? Feng stepped forward, his voice trembling with curiosity. What cost? What is this ship? The being gestured to the walls, which pulsed in response. The vessel is a repository. A failsafe. It carries the last legacy of those who came before. But it is also a weapon. One that can reshape the fabric of reality itself. The team followed the being deeper into the starship, its interior an endless maze of glowing corridors and pulsating structures. At its core was a chamber dominated by a massive crystalline structure, suspended in the air like a heart. It pulsed with a steady rhythm, its energy filling the room. This is the core, the being explained. The vessel requires a custodian to function. Without one, it remains dormant. Dana frowned. And let me guess, you're the custodian? The being shook its head. I am a guardian, a guide. The custodian must be chosen. One of your kind. Ilara's expression hardened. What does that mean? Sacrifice, the being said simply. The custodian becomes bound to the vessel, there will entwined with its purpose. It is not a choice made lightly. Before they could respond, the ship trembled violently. Alarms blared, and the walls of the chamber glowed red. The being turned toward a glowing console. The Coalition is here. They have breached the outer perimeter. Ilara's voice was firm. How long do we have? Minutes, the being replied. Ilara turned to Feng and Dana. Get whatever data you can from this ship. We need to know what we're up against. Dana hesitated. And if we can't hold them off? Then we make sure they don't get their hands on this ship, Ilara said grimly. As the team prepared for the Coalition's assault, Oracle stepped forward, its avatar flickering. The custodian must be chosen, it said. Without one, the vessel's full power cannot be unleashed. Ilara turned to the being. What happens if no one steps up? The vessel will collapse, the being said. And the Coalition will annihilate you. The chapter ends with Ilara stepping forward, her expression resolute. If it's going to be anyone, it'll be me. The chamber glowed as the vessel responded to her presence, its energy enveloping her. The first wave of the Coalition's fleet descended upon the starship, their weapons lighting up the void. The Coalition fleet descended like a storm of fire and steel, their massive warships eclipsing the twin suns of the alien system. Plasma bolts rained down, striking the precursor starship's energy shields with earth-shaking force. Inside the vessel, General Ilara Voss stood in the central chamber, surrounded by a maelstrom of glowing symbols and pulsating energy. The vessel's core had come alive, responding to her presence. Its light swirled around her, synchronizing with her heartbeat. Her team stood frozen, watching as the energy coiled around her like living tendrils. Ilara, stop, Lieutenant Dana Reyes said, her voice trembling. We don't even know what this thing will do to you. Ilara turned, her expression calm but resolute. It's not about me. It's about stopping them. The custodian must synchronize fully, Kale, the alien guardian, said. Its translucent form hovered beside the core, its voice a blend of reverence and urgency. Only then will the vessel unleash its true potential. Dr. Alaric Fong was already working at his interface, his fingers flying over the glowing symbols. We don't have time for debates, he said, his voice frantic. The coalition is already breaching the outer defenses. Ilara stepped forward, the vessel's energy pulling her closer. Then let's give them something to fear. As Ilara began the synchronization process, the vessel responded with a surge of power, sending shockwaves through its interior. The ship's defenses activated, and the walls came alive with energy constructs, massive, crystalline guardians that formed from the ship's living surface. They marched toward the breaches, their glowing limbs humming with destructive potential outside. The coalition's warships fired relentlessly, their weapons pounding against the vessel's shields. Smaller ships broke off, swarming toward the starship's docking points, deploying legions of alien soldiers to storm the interior. Dana and the rest of the team took up defensive positions in the corridors leading to the core. The first wave of alien soldiers, a mixture of insectoid and crystalline species, poured through the breaches, their weapons lighting up the narrow passages. "Hold the line!" Dana shouted, her plasma rifle blazing as she took down the first of the intruders. "We can't let them get to Ilara." Oracle appeared beside her, its avatar flickering. "Their tactics are predictable. Aim for the joint sections of their armor." Dana gritted her teeth. "Glad to know you're on our side for now." The battle raged through the vessel's halls, every step a brutal contest of survival. Soldiers fell, human and alien alike, as the corridors became a killing ground. Meanwhile, Ilara stood in the core chamber, her body surrounded by the vessel's energy. The synchronization process was almost complete, but each second felt like an eternity. Images flashed before her eyes, memories, possibilities, and visions of what the vessel could do. "You are becoming one with it," Kale said, its voice reverent. "You will shape its will." "What does that mean?" Ilara asked, her voice strained. "What am I supposed to do?" Kale's glowing eyes met hers. "Decide. Life or destruction. Creation or annihilation. The choice is yours." Ilara's mind swirled with doubt, but she pushed it aside. There was no time for hesitation. "If this thing can stop the coalition, that's what I'll use it for." Kale inclined its head. "Then you must surrender yourself to it completely." The fighting intensified as the coalition's forces pushed deeper into the vessel. Dana's team was forced to fall back, retreating toward the core. One by one, they were overwhelmed. A young soldier, barely out of training, threw himself into the path of an alien blade to protect Fong, his scream echoing through the chamber. "We're losing people!" Dana shouted into her comms. "Ilara, whatever you're doing, do it faster." Ilara's voice came through, calm but tinged with finality. "I'm almost there. Hold them off as long as you can." Fong was huddled behind cover, his face pale. "We can't keep this up," he muttered, his hands trembling. "We're going to die here." Dana shot him a glare. "Then die fighting." Just as it seemed all hope was lost, the vessel's energy surged. The walls of the chamber glowed brighter than ever, and the alien attackers hesitated, their movements faltering. Ilara's voice echoed through the ship, amplified by the vessel itself. "This is your last chance," she said, her tone unwavering. "Leave, or I will unleash the full power of this ship." The coalition's response was immediate. Their warships fired a coordinated volley, aiming to breach the vessel's shields in a single, devastating attack. Ilara closed her eyes, her hands gripping the core's interface. "Oracle," she said quietly, "what happens if I fail?" Oracle's voice was softer than usual. "Then humanity dies." Ilara exhaled slowly. "Not today." She activated the vessel. The starship came alive with a deafening hum. Its energy radiated outward in a shockwave that shattered the coalition's smaller ships and forced their larger vessels to retreat. Inside the vessel, the alien invaders were disintegrated, their bodies reduced to ash as the ship's defenses reached their peak. The core chamber flooded with light, and Ilara collapsed to her knees, her body trembling as the vessel's power coursed through her. The synchronization was complete. "You are now the custodian," Kale said, its voice filled with awe. "The vessel is yours to command." Ilara looked up, her eyes glowing with the same energy as the core. "Then let's finish this." As the coalition retreated, the team regrouped in the core chamber. Dana helped Ilara to her feet, her expression wary. "You okay, General?" Ilara nodded, though she looked anything but fine. "The vessel's power. It's overwhelming, but I can control it." Feng stared at her, his face a mixture of fear and fascination. "What happens now?" Before Ilara could answer, Oracle spoke. "The coalition wasn't just after the vessel. They were trying to prevent you from reaching it." Dana frowned. "Why? What are they so afraid of?" Oracle's avatar flickered. "Because the vessel isn't just a weapon. It's a beacon. And activating it has sent a signal." The chamber trembled, and the holographic map of the galaxy shifted. At its center, a dark void began to expand, consuming star systems as it grew. "What is that?" Feng asked, his voice trembling. Kale's expression darkened. "The Precursor's greatest enemy. You have awakened it." The chapter ends with the team staring at the growing void, their victory overshadowed by the realization that they've unleashed something far worse. The precursor vessel floated silently in the void, surrounded by the debris of the coalition fleet. The once brilliant energy shields had dimmed to a faint glow, and the starship's immense power seemed to have receded. Inside, the air was thick with tension, the weight of what had just occurred pressing down on everyone. General Ilara Voss sat slumped against the base of the vessel's core, her armor scorched and her face pale. The synchronization process had drained her, leaving her physically and emotionally battered. Around her, the surviving members of the team moved in hushed tones, tending to the wounded and securing the chamber. "It's over," Lieutenant Dana Reyes said softly, kneeling beside Ilara. "At least for now." Ilara shook her head, her voice hoarse. "No. It's just beginning." The core glowed faintly, projecting the holographic map that now displayed a dark void growing at the galaxy's center. Star systems winked out one by one as the darkness expanded, consuming everything in its path. Dr. Alaric Feng stared at the display, his expression one of dawning horror. "What have we done?" The team gathered around the map, their faces lit by its faint blue glow. Oracle's avatar flickered into existence, its usual calm demeanor replaced by something almost somber. "The signal you sent has awakened an ancient force," it said. "The precursors called it the Unmaking." Feng's voice trembled. "What is it?" Kale, the alien guardian, stepped forward. Its translucent form seemed dimmer than before, as if the events of the battle had taken a toll on it as well. "It is entropy given form. The precursors built the vessel as a refuge, a final bastion against the darkness. But even they could not stop it." Dana crossed her arms, her jaw tight. "So you're saying we just rang the dinner bell for some galaxy-ending nightmare?" Kale nodded solemnly. "The vessel's activation sent a signal across the stars. The Unmaking will come. It cannot be stopped, only delayed." Ilara forced herself to stand, her legs shaky but firm. "Then we use the vessel to fight it." Kale's gaze was unreadable. "To fight it is to understand it. To understand it is to risk becoming it." As the team debated their next move, the weight of their losses became apparent. The casualties from the coalition's assault were staggering. Half the strike team had been lost, and those who survived bore scars, physical and emotional, that would never fully heal. Dana sat in a quiet corner of the chamber, cleaning her weapon with methodical precision. Her hands shook slightly, betraying the emotions she tried to bury. Across the room, Feng was hunched over his interface, analyzing the data they had retrieved from the Nexus and the vessel. "Any breakthroughs?" Dana asked, her tone sharp. Feng shook his head, his eyes bloodshot. "Only fragments. The Precursor's records are incomplete. Whatever this darkness is, they didn't leave us much to work with." Dana exhaled slowly. "Great. So we're flying blind." Oracle materialized beside her, its flickering form casting strange shadows on the wall. "Blindness is a human condition," it said. "Adaptation is your strength." Dana scowled. "Thanks for the motivational speech." Ilara stood at the core, her hands resting on the glowing interface. She could feel the vessel's power pulsing beneath her fingertips, a steady rhythm that matched her own heartbeat. The synchronization was complete. She was the custodian now. The ship's will was hers to command, but the responsibility weighed heavily. Kale approached her, its translucent form shimmering faintly. "You carry the legacy of the precursors," it said. "But the vessel's power is not infinite. Each use will drain it further." Elara nodded, her voice quiet. "What happens when it's gone?" Kale's gaze shifted to the holographic map. "Then humanity will face the unmaking alone." She clenched her fists, determination hardening her features. "Then we'll make every use count." The team convened in the vessel's main chamber, where the holographic map continued to display the expanding void. Oracle and Kale worked together to analyze the data, their combined knowledge offering fragments of hope. "We can chart its progression," Oracle said. "The unmaking spreads predictably, consuming systems based on density and energy output." Feng frowned. "So what do we do?" "Evacuate every system in its path." "That's not enough," Elara said firmly. "We need to understand it. Find its source. If we can disrupt its progression, even delay it, we give humanity a chance to prepare." Kale hesitated. "The vessel can chart a course to the void's center. But the journey will be perilous. The closer you get, the stronger its pull becomes." Elara nodded. "Then we start there." As the vessel powered up for its next jump, the team stood together on the observation deck, staring out at the void-streaked galaxy. The silence was heavy, each of them lost in their own thoughts. Feng spoke first, his voice quiet. "Do you think we have a chance?" Elara didn't answer immediately. She placed a hand on the console, feeling the vessel's energy resonate beneath her palm. "As long as we're still standing, we have a chance." Dana snorted softly. "That's a lot of faith in something none of us understand." Elara turned to face her team, her expression resolute. "We didn't come this far to give up now. The precursors built this vessel to protect their legacy. Now it's our legacy. And we're going to fight for it." The starship's engines flared, and the vessel surged forward, vanishing into the unknown. Behind them, the void continued to grow, an ominous reminder of what awaited them. The chapter ends with the team staring into the abyss, their determination tempered by the knowledge that the real fight had only just begun. The vessel emerged from the fold of space with a sudden lurch, the stars outside stretching and distorting before settling into unfamiliar constellations. The void around them was eerily still, the galaxy's vibrant colors replaced by a faint, oppressive darkness. The team stood on the observation deck, staring out at the abyss that stretched endlessly before them. "This doesn't look right," Lieutenant Dana Reyes muttered, her hands gripping the railing. "Are we even still in the same galaxy?" General Elara Voss turned to Oracle, whose avatar flickered beside her. "Where are we?" Oracle's voice was calm but tinged with unease. "We have entered the periphery of the void. This region exists at the boundary between reality and the entropy that consumes it." Dr. Alaric Fong adjusted his interface, his face illuminated by the faint glow of his screen. "The energy readings here are off the charts," he said, his voice a mixture of awe and fear. "This place, it's like the laws of physics are breaking down." Kale, the alien guardian, hovered nearby, its translucent form dimmed. "The void is the unmaking's domain. The further we go, the less stable the fabric of existence will become." Elara's gaze hardened. "Then we better move fast. What's our next step?" Oracle guided the team to a nearby structure, a massive, derelict station drifting at the edge of the void. Its design was unmistakably precursor, but its once majestic spires and intricate architecture were now warped and broken, as if reality itself had begun to unravel around it. "Is it safe to board?" Dana asked, eyeing the station warily. "Define safe," Fong muttered as he worked to synchronize the vessel scanners with the station systems. "The energy signatures coming off that thing are unstable." Elara made the decision. "We're boarding. If there are answers to be found, they're in there." The docking sequence was tense, the vessel systems struggling to compensate for the station's erratic gravitational field. When the team finally stepped onto the station, they were met with a scene of eerie desolation. The walls pulsed faintly with a sickly green light, and the air was heavy, as though the station itself was alive and dying. Fong led the way, his portable interface pinging wildly as he scanned the station systems. "This place is ancient, even by precursor standards," he said. "But there's still data here. I might be able to access it." As he worked, the team spread out to secure the area. Dana found a control room filled with holographic displays, their images flickering between coherent schematics and incomprehensible static. "What is this place?" she muttered to herself, her fingers brushing against one of the consoles. Cale floated beside her, its voice solemn. This was a research station. The precursors sought to understand the unmaking here. In the main chamber, Feng activated a central console. The station systems groaned to life, and a holographic image of a precursor custodian appeared. Its form was fractured and incomplete, its voice distorted. To those who find this, the custodian said, its words crackling with static, "You must understand. The unmaking is not entropy. It is will. It consumes, but it also thinks. It adapts." The image flickered, and Feng furiously worked to stabilize the signal. "It's sentient?" he asked aloud, his voice trembling. The custodian's image flickered again. "We could not stop it. We could only delay it. The vessel is your only hope. Use it wisely." The message ended abruptly, leaving the team in stunned silence. Before they could process the message, alarms blared throughout the station. Oracle appeared beside Elara, its tone sharp. "Unidentified vessels approaching. They are not coalition." The team rushed to the observation deck just as several small, jagged ships docked with the station. Moments later, heavily armed figures emerged, humanoid but distinctly alien, their armor scarred and patched together from countless battles. They moved with purpose, their weapons trained on the team, survivors, Cale said, its tone unreadable. "They are remnants of the precursor's fall." The alien leader stepped forward, its voice echoing through the chamber. "You carry the vessel's mark," it said, pointing at Elara. "You have brought the void to us." Elara raised her hands, trying to de-escalate the situation. "We're not your enemies. We're trying to stop the void." The leader's expression darkened. "The void cannot be stopped. And you have ensured its arrival." The room erupted into chaos as the aliens opened fire, forcing the team to take cover. The battle was brutal, the station's unstable environment adding to the danger. Walls shimmered and warped, gravity shifted unpredictably, and equipment sparked and failed as the team fought to repel the attackers. The station trembled violently. Cale's voice cut through the comms. "A fragment of the unmaking has breached the station. Its presence is destabilizing everything." Feng froze, his face pale. "A fragment? You mean, it's here?" A dark mass began to seep through the walls, a swirling, chaotic void that seemed to consume light and matter alike. The alien attackers fell back in terror, their leader shouting in a language the team didn't understand. Elara made a snap decision. "Feng, can the vessel contain it?" Feng hesitated. I don't know. The vessel systems weren't designed for direct contact with the void." "Then we improvise," Elara said. "Oracle, guide him. Dana, cover him." The team worked together to hold off the fragment, their weapons seemingly useless against its shifting form. The station continued to deteriorate, pieces of it collapsing into the swirling mass. Feng managed to interface the vessel systems with the station, creating a containment field around the fragment. The void recoiled, its mass shrinking as the field compressed it. But the strain was too much for the station, which began to collapse entirely. "We have to go," Dana shouted, dragging Feng away from the console. Elara stayed behind, her hands on the core's controls. "I can stabilize it." "Get to the vessel." "No," Dana yelled. "Not again. We're not leaving without you." Cale appeared beside Elara, its voice urgent. "Custodian, you cannot stay. The vessel's survival is paramount." Elara hesitated, torn between her duty and her team. Finally, she stepped back, her voice steady. "Move out." The team sprinted back to the vessel, the station collapsing around them. The docking clamps released just as the station was consumed by the void, the team barely escaping with their lives. As the vessel powered up for its next jump, the fragment of the unmaking writhed within its containment field, its presence a haunting reminder of what awaited them. The precursor vessel drifted closer to the center of the void, the dark expanse swallowing the last remnants of starlight. The galaxy behind them was a faint shimmer on the horizon, a distant memory of the worlds they'd left behind. Here, at the edge of existence, the air within the vessel felt heavier, as though the void's oppressive presence seeped into everything. General Elara Voss stood on the bridge, her hands gripping the console. The holographic map flickered, distorted by the void's chaotic energy. "Oracle," she said, her voice steady despite the unease gnawing at her. "How much farther?" Oracle's avatar appeared, its light dimmed. "We are approaching the void's core. Sensors indicate that the anomaly is approximately 0.02 light-years ahead." Dr. Alaric Fong adjusted his portable interface, his face pale. "The energy readings are off the charts," he muttered. "This isn't just entropy. It's something alive." Lieutenant Dana Reyes glanced at him, her plasma rifle slung over her shoulder. "Alive and pissed off, if you ask me." Kale, the alien guardian, floated near the observation window, its translucent form flickering faintly. "The void is more than alive," it said. "It is sentience without form. A hunger that cannot be satisfied. Proceed with caution, custodian." Ilara's jaw tightened. "We've come this far. There's no turning back now." The vessel's engines hummed as it pushed deeper into the void. Outside, the darkness shifted and writhed, forming shapes that dissolved as quickly as they appeared. The walls of the vessel groaned, as though protesting against the strain of the journey. Fong stared at his screen, his hands trembling. "These distortions. It's like the void is rewriting reality around us." "Focus," Ilara said sharply. "We need answers, not commentary." Dana stood at the edge of the bridge, her eyes scanning the shifting darkness outside. "Anyone else feel like we're being watched?" Oracle's avatar flickered beside her. "Your perception is accurate. The void is aware of us." Kale turned to Ilara. "You must prepare. The closer we get, the more it will test you." Ilara didn't respond immediately. Her gaze was fixed on the core interface, where faint tendrils of light still coiled around her hands. She could feel the vessel's power, a steady pulse that matched her heartbeat. It was both a comfort and a burden. As the vessel neared the void's heart, the team encountered a derelict fleet, hundreds of ships drifting aimlessly, their designs ranging from ancient precursor vessels to coalition warships. Their hulls were scorched and twisted, as though they had been devoured from the inside out. "What happened here?" Dana asked, her voice hushed. Kale floated closer to the display. "They came seeking salvation. They found only the void." Feng's fingers danced over his interface. "Some of these ships are still emitting faint energy signatures. If we can interface with their systems, we might learn more about what we're up against." Ilara nodded. "Do it. But stay alert. If anything moves, I want to know about it." The team boarded one of the larger precursor vessels, its interior eerily similar to their own ship. The walls pulsed faintly, and the air was heavy with the scent of decay. In the command chamber, they found a fragmented holographic recording. The image of a precursor custodian flickered to life. "The unmaking is not entropy," the custodian said, its voice distorted. "It is intent. It learns. It adapts. It consumes not out of necessity, but out of desire." The recording ended abruptly, leaving the team in stunned silence. Fong broke the silence, his voice trembling. "It's not just alive. It's intelligent." Before they could process the revelation, the derelict ship shuddered violently. The walls around them began to darken, tendrils of shadow seeping through the cracks. Kale's voice was sharp. "It's here. The void is aware of us." Ilara drew her weapon. "Back to the vessel. Now." The team sprinted through the ship's twisting corridors as the shadows coalesced into a massive, amorphous form. It moved with terrifying speed, consuming everything in its path. Dana fired a volley of plasma rounds, but the shots vanished into the void's mass, leaving it unscathed. "Nothing stopping it," she shouted. Ilara glanced at Oracle. "Options. The vessel's core can generate a containment field," Oracle replied. "But only if you activate it directly." Ilara nodded. "Get everyone back on board." "I'll handle it." Ilara stayed behind, standing in the derelict ship's central chamber as the void's mass closed in around her. The tendrils of darkness lashed out, but the vessel's power surged through her, forming a barrier that held them at bay. "You are the custodian," the void's voice whispered, a sound that resonated inside her mind. "But even you will fall." Ilara gritted her teeth, her hands gripping the vessel's interface tightly. "You won't win." The void's presence pressed harder, testing the limits of her strength. Images flashed before her eyes, memories, fears, and doubts. She saw the faces of her fallen comrades, heard their screams, felt the weight of her failures. But then she saw something else. Her team, standing together on the vessel's bridge, fighting to survive. Their determination fueled her resolve. "I'm not alone," she said, her voice steady. "And we're not done yet." With a final surge of power, she activated the containment field. The void recoiled, its mass collapsing inward as it was trapped within the field. Elara staggered back, her body trembling from the effort. The team returned to the vessel, shaken but alive. Elara stood at the core, her hands still glowing faintly with the vessel's energy. The holographic map displayed their position, just a step away from the void's heart. Dana approached her, her voice quiet. "What now?" Elara looked at the map, her expression resolute. "We finish this." The chapter ends with the vessel powering up for its final jump, the void's heart looming ahead. The shadows around them grow darker, and a faint whisper echoes through the ship, "You cannot win." As the precursor vessel sailed into the unknown, the crew found a moment of quiet on the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, a reminder of the vastness of the galaxy they had fought so hard to protect. General Elara Voss stood at the center, her posture strong despite the weariness in her eyes. She looked around at her team, Dana Reyes with her unyielding courage, Dr. Alaric Fong with his boundless curiosity, Kale with its enigmatic wisdom, and Oracle, flickering but ever steadfast. "This isn't the end," Elara said, her voice low but firm. "It's a new beginning. For humanity, for this galaxy. We've earned this chance, but it's just the start of something bigger." Dana smirked, slinging her rifle over her shoulder. "Guess that means we'll be busy." Kale's form shimmered faintly, its tone reverent. The precursors believed in their custodian. Now the galaxy will look to you to carry their legacy forward. Elara turned her gaze to the stars, her resolve unshakable. "Then we make it count." The vessel's engines flared, its light cutting through the endless night. Behind them, the galaxy began to heal, and ahead lay the infinite horizon of possibility. They were no longer just survivors, they were explorers, guardians, and a beacon of hope in a universe that had almost fallen to darkness. The screen fades to black as the vessel disappears into the starry expanse, its journey far from over.